Hello, everyone, and welcome to the exciting final round of the first Caplin Menchik Memorial Tournament. I'm joined by two heroes of English women's chess, International Master Harriet Hunt and Women's Director Aga Milewska. Hello, welcome, both of you. Aga, did you want to...
Good to see you.
Hi. Did you want to say a bit about the tournament, Aga, before we start?
Absolutely, yes. Hello, everyone. And we are speaking from the Mindspur Center, which is amazing venue for all our actually events. It is the third norm title event for the women in England. And we are extremely happy that we have actually involved 7 different countries in the tournament. We have already secured 2 titles norms, which is the one Ukrainian player Kamila Hryshchenko. She secured her WIM norm, and Lanyao, who is still playing, and she secured the WGM norm, which is still chance for her to get the IM norm if she's gonna win this round, which is extremely exciting. Yes. The games, they are absolutely amazing. The level the women they are playing here is incredible. I'm watching the games and I literally love it. That's why we were wanted to prepare the tournament like this. Tournament is of course in memory of woman world champion Vera Menchik, which she died in the 1944. And we wanted to, in her memory, to organize the tournament because her death was on the 26th of the June, which is today is the unfortunately the anniversary. Tournament wouldn't be possible to organize, of course, without help of the people, help of the sponsors, which we have quite few people involved in this, which I'm very grateful for it, because the women, they can really enjoy the tournament. They can meet some of them they didn't see for quite a long time and compete. It's really high level of the players, and we are extremely happy to have women from 7 different countries. Then we have as well Czech embassy helping around. We had a visit in Czech embassy the other day, which was really nice and honor for us to be invited and to be a part of it as well. We have a talk with ambassador, and possibly if the tournament will be repeated in future, the Czech embassy, they very lovely offer us to use the Czech embassy as a venue for the next tournament, which we are really, really happy with.
Oh, lovely to make it happen.
I will try. Yes, the big thank you is going to John Ashworth, who is the Caplin system. He is the official sponsor of our event, and without his help, it wouldn't be possible really to make it happen, even with all the things that we have around and subsidy. That was the most important one to make it, to put the stamp on the tournament and make it happen. Thank you to the Chess Trust, Friends of Chess, and as well Eva Rybkova from FIDE Women Commission, who directly they help taking the Ukrainian player to play in this tournament. Thank you to Chess and Bridge, who actually give us some special prizes like the books for the player. We have the book of Vera Menchik as well, funded by the Chess and Bridge, which is great. And of course, Malcolm Payne, he helped me a lot. I wouldn't be possible for me as I have a big experience with the tournaments, but I still need some direction, let's say. And whatever I will ask Malcolm, he is always helping me to organize the thing and getting connect with the right people, which is really appreciated because it is needed for the women in England. We need some support, we need the help, and only if we will connect all together, it is gonna work. Thank you, Natasha, to coming today and yesterday for doing the commentary. We really appreciate. Thank you, Harriet, and thank you to Matt Ball who did the commentary with you yesterday. and we know you are actually at the seniors as well. The England is doing very well. Congratulations from us. Then we have quite few tournaments going the same time. We have you at the seniors. We have here Caplin Menchik Memorial, but we as well have the Queen's Festival going today, and the English team is playing as well. And as far as I know, they're doing well. Then keep the fingers crossed. What else I would like to say? This is incredible opportunity for us, for the women to connect. And we just want, to have it more and just organize whether it's possible, for us and develop the chess in England.
And of course, a big thank you to you, Aga, for all your energy and getting so much happening in women's chess at the moment. It's really great, and only good results can come from it. It's going to improve the strength of our women and the number of our women playing, which is at least as important. So yeah,
thank you very much. And this week was extremely busy because with Chess in School we are organizing the Chess Fest, but the English women, they are preparing for the Olympiad, and this week we spent quite a few days at the Indian embassy to get the visa for all the passports, because now we need the paper visa for all the British people to get to India, and all the formality, the flights and accommodation is actually on the way. Then we have not only quite few tournaments going on, but we also have the Olympiad coming, which is I'm extremely excited about it. I never been to the Olympiad. This is my first time when I will go with the team, and I'm actually privileged and honored to go with English team and be there and support the women's in chess, which I will be involved with FIDE Women Commission, some events coming up.
Excellent. Well, good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, Natasha, I will be going.
Let's have a look at some of the games, because this is the last round, and there is one particularly key game going on, because this last round we still don't know who's going to win the tournament. Should we start off? We can start off by just looking at the standings. And so here you can see this is the draw for today. And you can see it's an all play all, so it's kind of by chance, isn't it, that the top game is happening in the final round. We've got for Okoska on, yep, thank you, against Lanyao on 6.5. So White will need to win the tournament. Yep. And Black needs to draw in order to win the tournament outright. But as you've just said, Black is actually also playing for the win, because that
possibility.
Lanyao an IM norm. So that would be absolutely fantastic if she can do that. She's already got her WGM norm. And is it the title as well, Aga, that she's got?
It is, yes. She already achieved yesterday, secured her. Of course, she needs to play the whole 9 rounds. Then now she's playing, then we can say for formality, if she will finish the 9 rounds, whether result it will be, she already secured her WGM norm. But if she's going to win this round, she can get the IM norm.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's, without further ado, let's hop to that game. And here we go. We'll start from the beginning, shall we? Okay, so this game starts very, very quietly. So let's see, knight f3.
Okay, so this is quite a surprise that Joanna has played knight f3, because she's pretty much always plays 1e4. But Lanyao has been playing the black side of the Taimanov Sicilian extremely well in this event and also in other events. I was one of the players who fell victim to this. So I think that Joanna is decided obviously that she didn't want to play into her Taimanov Sicilian. So she's decided to take a different approach to the opening here.
Do you think has she played this kind of thing much before, or is this quite?
As far as I know, not. I was white against Joanna, so I don't know if she's ever played this. I think she may have played it once or twice as white, but it's not her regular repertoire.
What is interesting that yesterday in the evening after the previous round, she was actually already thinking about what she's gonna play today, then she was preparing for this round. Then probably that's why she played something she never played before, because she wanted to surprise opponents.
Yeah, she was asking me about the Taimanov Sicilian last night, so
okay.
She's obviously had a think and decided she'll go a different path and maybe try and take Lan Yao out of her own preparation as well.
So your answer, Harriet, was don't go anywhere near it. Was that kind of what you told her?
Well, that was my experience, certainly. Yeah.
So castles.
There have been some very interesting attempts by several players in this tournament, actually, to avoid their opponents' preparations. If we have time, we could look at some of those games later. But a number of players have sprung early opening surprises on their opponent in this competition.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what, though, it doesn't seem to have phased Lan Yao. It must be a surprise, but she still was playing all her moves in kind of a matter of seconds.
She seems to me to be very well prepared theoretically in general. She really knows what she's doing in the opening, has been my general impression. So I don't think she would be particularly phased.
Yep. So knight d2.
So this is quite interesting. I wasn't sure if Joanna was going to try and transpose black back into some sort of English opening with c4 at some stage. But actually, as we'll see, does she play e4 next? Yes. So she is getting her e4 in, but she's going into some sort of King's Indian attack setup here.
Yeah. Knight c6. And so King's Indian attack, White's going to try what? Rook e1, e5, knight f1, h4, and knight h2.
Probably h4, probably putting the pawn on c3 just to hold the d4 square, yeah. And probably e5 at some stage.
Yeah.
Natasha, if I can just say and greet everyone and say goodbye, because I need to come back to the tournament. I wish you good luck.
You better keep the tournament under control. That's very good.
Absolutely.
Hi, Caroline. Hi, Ocelot. See you, Aga. Good luck with the tournament, the rest of the tournament.
Thank you very much. Harriet, if you want, you can stop.
Okay, we better just wait for Aga to get through the door and shut it, because we're actually just across the corridor from the playing room. So obviously we
don't want to give away all the secrets.
Players listening in on the commentary.
Yeah.
There we are. Aga's out of the door now.
Okay, fine. So yes, so she does actually play your move c3 straight away, and Lan Yao b5, getting the queenside pawns going straight away.
This is very normal.
Queen e2, bishop b7, and now e5 comes in. So this is a typical move from this King's Indian attack.
Yeah.
Knight d7, knight f1, and Lan Yao now plays d4.
Okay, so I guess now the knight, this is probably quite a good time to do this, I guess, now that the knight has left d2 and is therefore not in a position to eye up the e4 square and indeed to support c4. Yeah, so the knight's gone back to f1, because otherwise it could hop in. Yeah, I mean, not trivially, because the e5 pawn would hang, but in particular it makes it difficult for White to push c4 in this position, because I imagine Black would then capture and have a protected pass pawn on d4. So she really, to be able to play c4, she needed that supported with the knight on d2.
Yeah.
So I imagine she will just leave that there now. I mean, I think White will go maybe h4 and bishop f4 to support the e5 pawn further.
Yeah, she's gone bishop f4.
Bishop f4. Okay, yeah, that's secure on that square at the moment, and that also deters. Well, not in this particular position, but there are some positions in the King's Indian attack where Black might consider going f6, and the bishop on f4 obviously deters that. Yeah.
So what might we see Black playing now, do you think?
Well, I wonder if Black wants... I think Black can't get any more pressure on the e5 pawn, so I guess she wants to maybe reroute her d7 knight to the d5 square via b6.
Yeah.
and hassling both that bishop on f4 and also the c3 pawn. But should she do that? Should she do that right away? I mean, I don't know if white is thinking about exchanging on or putting a rook on d1 and on c1. Sorry, the queen's rook on c1.
Oh, that makes
opening
sense.
up the c file.
So the queen and yeah. So maybe she will do that. Yeah. So it's a kind of must-win game for both players, which is interesting because normally you'd like in these games you'd have one player or the other going for the win and the other going for the draw or whatever, but they're both.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that Lan would be more disappointed if she doesn't win the tournament than if she doesn't make. Oh, okay, she's captured on c3. So maybe she was worried about. I think she was worried about the opening up of the c file. Yeah, I imagine she would be more disappointed not to win the tournament than not to make the IM norm, which is always a bit of a lottery anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
first IM norm, presumably.
I think it's her first IM norm. Yeah, I think it would be.
Fine.
So I guess now she's going to try. Okay, so she's going to try and weaken white's queen side further here. And again, this is probably a good moment to do that now. The knight is further away from c4 than it was a couple of moves ago. Yeah. So white's d3 pawn is going to be left weak. This is now what's white going to do here is white going to push c4, which clamps down on the d5 square but leaves black with a long-term pawn majority on the A and B files.
So if white did go c4, I'm just going to play the moves, play it on the board. C4 here. It kind of. What about just like knight d4? Because doesn't black want to swap off these light squared bishops?
Well, the question is black's going to be end up with that dark squared bishop.
Yeah, that one's not too exciting either, I suppose.
No, but I think this is probably quite a good idea for black, especially because white. So after knight takes d4, c takes d4, for example, either with an exchange of bishops on b7 or not, then white can't reroute their knight back to d2, very quickly because. Oh no, I was just wondering if g5 would win a piece, but actually white has queen g4, so maybe.
Oh, let's see that. Okay, so what's Harriet saying? This knight here.
Yeah, g5.
Try and win a piece, but
queen. Yeah, okay. No, that's just. That's. Yeah, I mean, it's still not so clear actually because black can play. Yeah.
You're getting the evaluation bar very excited there, Harriet.
Yeah, I am. It's quite frightening to be watching the evaluation bar in real time.
Let me see if I can switch that one off actually. Right, does that one? Is that going to do it?
I'm quite nervous doing this commentary, by the way. This is the first time I've done one of these sorts of things, so I'm very glad I'm doing it together with you, Natasha, with all your vast experience.
I've done a lot of commentaries, but you can make sure the chess moves are right.
Well, I don't know. It's surprisingly hard to do it on a screen. I think I see much more when I'm watching the games kind of live with the 3D pieces. So
yeah. Well, you see, what we do is we make it up, and then if we miss something, the chat will very kindly tell us. They often do.
Are you keeping an eye on the chat?
I'm sometimes keeping an eye on the chat.
Now, I haven't actually managed to get my chat open. We've got a mouse here that's on a sort of velvet tablecloth, and it's not being terribly. Oh, there it is. Right, now I can see the chat. Okay.
Yes, we have Oslo and we have Caroline chatting.
We have Caroline. Yeah, hi Caroline.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, okay. So that's so white could do this kind of C4.
I noticed that. I noticed before you turned it off that the evaluation bar was very unhappy about that, and it's noticeable how quickly Lan Yao is playing these moves. She's obviously extremely confident in her evaluation of the positions and in what she should be doing in these positions, which is quite remarkable, really, given the pressure of the tournament situation. Most of us start to doubt ourselves a little bit in this sort of situation where we need a particular result to win a tournament. But she's carrying on as she has played all tournament, really, with immense confidence and composure.
Yeah. I mean, it's these pressure situations, like where delivering the results in the final round is not easy. I remember, I don't know if you remember, there was the candidates in London, and I think Magnus needed a win and someone else as well, and they just both lost in the last round, and everyone got really nervous. But does she? You're at the venue, aren't you, today? Does she look nervous or quite calm still?
No, she looks very calm to me, and I haven't been in the playing hall obviously for the last half hour or so, but but the speed at which she's making these moves. Already she's what, 20 minutes up on the clock against Joanna Dvorkovska, and I should say this is quite a difficult time control to play at. So the players have an hour and a half for all moves in the game, plus 30 seconds a move, but there's no additional time at move 40 or any other time point. And one thing we've seen is a lot of games have gone quite haywire as the players get down to little time as the game goes on. Really down to a few minutes, because there is no.
You have to be quite disciplined, don't you, if you're not getting any time added on at move 40, or at least not getting into any complicated.
The problem is, if you let yourself get down to a couple of minutes, then you are really then having to play at that speed for the rest of the game. You may know, and make split second decisions. And there have been a number of games over the last few days where the result or the position on the board has swung radically one way and the other in those critical last minutes, with players having to make very quick decisions in very complicated positions. One of the things that Aga didn't say, she's assembled a fantastic international cast of players, but one thing that has been characteristic of the tournament is that the majority of them have very sharp tactical styles. So we've had some very knife-edge tactical positions arising in a lot of games, with a lot of calculation needed, and that's exactly the sort of chess that does then produce some very exciting developments when you get down to the players being short of time in these critical positions.
How have you found it yourself, Harriet? Because you had a little, like, you've been playing quite a bit recently, and then you had a bit more of a break before that. I'm very disappointed with my score in this tournament. I just got outplayed by Lan Yao in round 3. I started quite well, and I think on the whole I had quite a favourable set of pairings. So I'm very disappointed with my score. But on the whole, I compared to some of my recent games, then I don't think I played so badly, or at least I made some good decisions as well as some bad decisions. I'm quite disappointed. I think I was winning against Ketty yesterday, against Ketty Arakami Grant, and again in a situation where we were both down to a few minutes on the clock, I failed to put that away. I was actually spent quite a lot of last night awake trying to work out how I should have won that position. It was really sort of haunting me. So that's sad.
But I felt quite kind of infused and motivated and playing with quite a lot of energy, which I don't know, I'm trying to tell myself is maybe more important than the result, because sometimes the worst thing to do is to just kind of go through the motions. And I think mostly I haven't been doing that, so that's I'm going to try and take that as a positive thing.
Yes. Now we've got some more moves. Joanna,
let's
she didn't play c4.
So possibly because that is just positionally bad for white. I mean, I was quite attracted by the idea of keeping black's d7 knight out, but yeah, she obviously feels this is a better way forward.
Yeah, and now Lan Yao has the choice of how to recapture.
Yeah, I was just wondering about this. I mean, I suppose if she... Well, I don't know.
I would have to say my first instinct was to take with the pawn.
This was my first instinct as well, because I'm very keen to find a role for black's d7 knight in this position, and if we take with the pawn, then it can head towards the c5 square.
Yeah.
Or if white tries to go d4, then we can also instead look to blockade on the, I mean, either in this position or at some later minute, then we can look to blockade on the d5 square, and then black will try and play in the long run with her queenside pawn majority and against that backward d pawn on d4.
Yeah, because with this you could go like eventually a5, a4, b3.
No, exactly, and ideas of transferring the bishop. Well, black's quite flexible about where she can put her rooks. I imagine that f8 rook is coming to d8. And in general, I think that opening the game up like this is going to make it more difficult for white to pursue any sort of successful attack on the king side, just because there's going to be too much going on in the center and on the queen side, and it's going to be easier for black to create counterplay and defend against any threats on the king side where white has more space by challenging on those central files.
But Lan Yao didn't do that. She actually took back with
the knight. No, I mean that has so she still has no, she doesn't have a clear pawn majority on the queen side anymore. So so she's trying to head for that d5 square. She's trying to play against white's weak pawn on d3. So and she can put a rook on the d file in order to do this, and possibly also her bishop on a6 once she's got that a8 rook off that diagonal. So maybe she can bring her a8 rook to d8. Although it has a range of options. I mean, it could also go to b8.
Okay, yes. So if she does, if she's successful and manages to win this d pawn, then suddenly this c pawn's passed and really good.
I don't think it's so simple because so Joanna has just put her knight on e3, heading for the c4 square.
Yes. Which kind of
I'm guessing, so I'm just thinking, suppose Lan plays knight to d5 now.
Yeah.
Then I imagine she doesn't want to take that. That will only help black's cause on the whole to exchange those pieces. I'm guessing she would go knight c4 here, try and clamp down on that c4 square and take the risk of let Lan Yao exchange those pieces on f4 if she wants to.
So Lan might take on f4 if you do.
Might take on f4.
And then you've got the bishop pair.
She's got the bishop pair, and white's got doubled pawns.
Yes.
And of course, if black here could go, say, f6. If white then took that and rook takes, then white's king side. I mean, it's double-edged because that e6 pawn is also weak, but white's king side is looking very unhealthy here.
Yeah, like queen f4's threatened, for example.
Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, that f4 pawn is just looking quite sick, and also, I would be quite worried about that rook coming to g6 and the bishop and the rook combining. I don't think for a minute she would capture on f6. Actually, if that were to occur, I think she will do something else.
Because a minute ago we were thinking it would be white. If anyone was going on the king side, it would be white. But now this looks like black's getting.
Yeah, I mean, knight takes f4 really changes the structure. But it also, it also mixes it up, and I would guess that maybe Joanna is not so happy with the outcome of the opening at the moment. I mean, I think I'm being slightly influenced here by what your evaluation bar was saying a few minutes ago.
Oh, well, it's gone now. It could be saying anything, Harriet. You know, because it's actually quite a fickle evaluation bar, this one, I've noticed before.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. No, I was watching it on the 4NCL a little earlier, and it was certainly being incredibly fickle there. So, well, some exciting games from the 4NCL today that I was watching before checking in here. Yeah. But you know, if the opening hasn't gone well for you as white, then sometimes, you know, you just want things to go a little bit kind of random, almost whatever the objective change on the board, because you know that bishop on the f4, it's a little bit of a problem for white. I mean, it's doing some good kind of sterling defensive work, but what else is it doing?
It's true, it's just kind of defending that pawn on e5, and other than that, it's kind of sitting there. And
I mean, I guess actually what white would probably like to do, you know, if white could have two moves in this position here, I imagine. Yeah, I imagine she would think about playing knight c4 and bishop to g5, to try and change off those bishops, those dark squared bishops, and that would give the knight a lot more influence over the d6 square. But of course, she can't do both those things.
No.
And the problem with
what if she tried the other one then? What if she tried?
Yeah, well, that's going to leave that e5 pawn very weak.
Very
weak, isn't it? But it's not so simple, because
let's try it here.
Okay, so what can we do? It's not so simple, because takes on g5, and knight takes, and then you see if black captures on e5, then white has discovered black can also capture with knight takes d5. You might have to capture with the queen instead.
Let's try it the other way.
Yeah. And now, well, knight takes d5, but then she can play queen takes knight on g5. So knight takes knight, queen takes the other knight. That's right.
Yeah.
And
then what? Then you can do a discovered. You can do a check.
You can do, but that's just, you know, white's lost a pawn here, so then that's just trading pieces for black. White's kind of run out of wood.
Yeah. You could go h4 though.
Well, the queen can drop. You can, and hope for queen g6, knight e7 check, but I don't think she's going to fall for that. I think she'll just drop her queen back to d8.
Well, worth a try. Hey.
Yeah. Maybe in the junior tournament going on downstairs. Yeah. Well, there's a fantastic junior tournament going on downstairs, organised by Lauren da Costa, as part of his She Plays to Win initiative, and it's a great tournament. I was watching some of that this morning. There's about 50% boys and 50% girls in this competition.
Very nice.
And I'm really impressed actually by the standard of junior chess that I'm seeing. Especially as a lot of these kids, well, I think there are kids their age between about 6 and 14, and a lot of them have played very little over the board chess, because during the pandemic, of course, there's been so much online chess and so little over the board chess for this new cohort of juniors. So it's really nice to see, and there's obviously a lot of talent out there, and a lot of talent, both boys and girls, playing.
Because didn't we got like, I'm going to not remember exact details, but didn't we have like 2 champions in the Europeans, like under-7 girls and under-7 boys?
Yes,
both
I think that's right.
Yeah, at higher ages as well.
Yes.
Was it Badana? She won the.
Badana won the yes. Yeah. Was that was the World Schools Championship? I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think either of them playing in this competition, but you know, they're all I'm really impressed by you know, they're all taking it extremely seriously. There are a lot of players trying really hard down there to learn and improve, so that's great. So that's a really nice sort of event going on downstairs today as well. I think actually we're broadcast. They may have put the screen on downstairs. So
lovely. So
our commentary on there. So hi everyone downstairs. If you
shout out to everyone playing in She Plays to Win today. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's actually called the E-Glide. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Junior tournament. I'm not sure what the significance is of the name. Maybe we can get Lauren up to tell us. He's a bit busy. I think he has. Anyone knows?
Yeah, I can imagine running a junior tournament's pretty frantic at times. Yeah. All right. So we've looked at a couple of plans for white here. So we've got a kind of knight c4, which is looking to control d6. We've also looked at attempting to exchange those bishops, but it looks a bit early for that just because of the weakness of the e5 pawn.
I mean, I guess what's white got going for her? So she can try to play against that c5 pawn. But it's quite well. Is this where we're at, by the way?
This is where we're at.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So she's having quite a long think in this position. Because I think there's a real risk here that black just starts hoovering some pieces, exchanging off a lot of minor pieces. And in general, those exchanges will favour black.
So something like rook c1 to kind of put pressure on the c file. Then she just takes on f4, presumably.
Well, she might even either on f4 or indeed on take the knight on e3. Because it seems to me quite hard for white to generate significant pressure against that c5 pawn. I mean, I might be wrong, but black has a lot of minor pieces defending it.
Yeah. There's that knight on d7, the bishop on e7, and the queen as well defending. So white's not going to be able to just win that pawn.
No, I mean, not unless she can try. I'm wondering if at some point that f3 knight is going to move and white is going to accept the trade of bishops on the long diagonal, perhaps to try and get her own knight into either e4 or c4.
Yeah. Okay, we have some on moves now. So knight d5. White actually took the knight off. So
okay, so I was wondering whether she might do this again just to try and so she's obviously decided. I think she's decided to do that rather than a move like rook to c1. She's probably decided that actually she can't accept the knight capturing that bishop on the f4 square.
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, in some ways, black would rather have the knight than the bishop on the d5 square. So, yeah. And also, while the bishop's on d5, it can't go to, for example, a6 to hit that.
This d3 pawn. Yeah, because actually now there's nothing obvious to attack that d3 pawn with in the very short.
No, but I don't know. I mean, but black now has, okay, so I was just thinking maybe now if she, I mean, white's a2 pawn is also quite weak in this position.
Interesting, yeah. So,
if white uses her a1 rook, then she immediately has to start worrying about moves like queen to a. I mean, for example, rook on a to c1 and then queen to a5 just gets that queen out the way and hits the a2 pawn.
A2 pawn already, yeah. And also, right, they might try and put their rooks on the b file at some point, I guess. And again, that a rook is going to be tied down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, black would like to get her rook off the a8 square because, you never want your rook to be on the same diagonal as a bishop. It closes down the enemy bishop. It closes down some of her options. So, the black rook, I guess, would like to come to b8. But in terms of something, so what can white do that's constructive in this position? I mean, it's quite difficult for her to achieve, say, the normal sort of thing white does in these King's Indian attack positions is to go h4 and h5. But the position is already quite open to be starting to do that. I mean, it's still not a bad idea structurally and strategically. I mean, the one thing that's slightly awkward about Black's position is what she's going to do with that d7 knight. You know, if that knight was on c6 already heading for the d4 square, or indeed if it were on d5, then so she needs to work out what she's doing with that.
It's going to take a few moves, isn't it? Because like, if you want to get it to d4, you're going to have to go what, knight b8, knight c6, knight d4.
I don't think she's going to do that, because, you know, also if she moves that knight, then she's going to increase White's chances of getting some counterplay against the c5 pawn. I mean, I think if that knight is very secure on that square, I'm not really sure that's a top priority. And Black, I guess, would also like to line up her queen with that bishop on the h1 to a8 diagonal with a move like queen to c6 or queen to b7. But it's not so stable there. You know, if we put a rook on c1, then, well, when a queen on c6 can be hit with knight d4 because of the pin, or a queen on b7 is going to be hit by the other rook. Yeah, I was wondering almost if we should play... Yeah, I was wondering almost if we should play the other rook actually to c1 and leave the b file for the queen's rook.
Let's do that. Queen here. Yeah, I mean, it does look nice, doesn't it? Lining up on this diagonal with those both. But then knight d4 straight away. Okay. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a super good idea or not. No, I think it is. I think this would be unwise for Black to allow, because she's going to have to leave the defense of that bishop, because if queen to b7, then it gets hit by the other rook on b1. Okay, and the point is that then when White changes bishops on d5, then the knight will leap into f5, and then White suddenly does have chances of an attack on the king side.
Yeah, it feels like things have turned around a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't think I don't think she's going to meet a move like rook to c1 by leaving her queen or keeping that queen on that c file.
Yeah. Now, what White has actually done is the move you said first of all, which is h4.
h4. Okay, so she's
which is a normal move, isn't it, in this system? Although you might have a more closed queen side.
Normally the queen side is a bit more shut down than this. And I guess I'm immediately, well, does Black want to play c4 in this position? No, I think, well, she might want to play c4. I mean, that gets rid of one of White's weaknesses as well.
Well, we're commentators, so we can try it out if we want to. So c4. Let's see.
So now, for example, White definitely doesn't want to play the move d4, because that just gives Black a protected pass pawn on the c file, and White has a backward pawn on d4. So that's kind of unacceptable.
Yeah.
But any other move is going to lead to some sort of... No, actually, maybe this is just a mistake, because White can put a rook on c1, probably the other rook actually, maybe rook on, let's try rook on a to c1. Okay, and then you see if she captures on d3, then the white rook will land on, the white rook takes the black queen, and there are a whole load of pieces being skewered on the 7th rank. So that's completely unacceptable for Black. That just loses material, that loses a piece.
Yeah.
So, but can White try any funny business with... Can Black try any funny business with, for example, bishop to a3?
Ah, interesting. Bishop a3. Okay. So, better move this rook, I would say.
Yeah.
So, rook. Well, if you go rook c3, you're just going to go bishop b4.
Yeah, exactly. Skewering the rook.
If you go rook c2, then...
No, that's going to be the same thing, essentially.
Yeah. So that's possible.
There's a question from Ocelot. Should black be trying to activate both rooks? Yeah, I think there's no guarantee that playing to liquidate the pawns very fast with c4 is a good idea. It was just the first thought I had, but indeed it may be premature.
Yeah. Okay, so sort of because all our lines we're looking at getting rooks onto the c file, and then sometimes we're having trouble with this for black with the queen just being lined up there. Black could alternatively, so say what about just like a quieter move like rook b8 or something like that?
b8. Okay, so I am guessing that white is going to plough on with h5 in response to that.
h5.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. And probably black should stop the advance of this rook pawn at some point.
So they will usually go h6. I mean, that would be a very normal structure. And then white can, try, but then white will probably start trying some sort of tactical tricks. I mean, probably even maybe moves like queen to e3 and then king to h7 is the sort of move a lot of us would play, even if it's not necessary right now, just to cut out the sacks. And then, white may even lash out with g4 here. I mean, this is by no means a must-win game for Joanna, but, she's white, she's playing an opponent who, at least on paper, is lower rated. Yeah. There's a bit of a sort of sense of do or die. It's victory or nothing in this tournament, really. What's
the prize difference?
There's no prize money in this tournament. So the title players at least have received appearance fees to play. And thereby providing norm opportunities. So there's no prize money at stake here, which of course changes the dynamic of the last round at all. Because if there was prize money at stake, then the players will factor that in, because eating is as important or more important as titles and trophies. So
they're playing for the honor.
They're playing for the honour and for the size of the trophy. There are some nice shiny trophies I've seen in the other room through there, which the Caplin Systems chief sponsor, is going to be presenting later this afternoon.
Oh, wonderful! Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So.
I mean, I don't really believe white's attack here, but as I say, it's the sort of thing she might go for. Is
that her style? Do you know enough of Joanna to know?
She's quite a sharp and aggressive player, and I have quite a poor score against her, actually. And this would exactly be her style. I mean, I think I would say actually her score in this tournament is a little bit flattering to her. She has won at least one game against one of the back runners in the tournament from a position where she was completely lost, and has had on the whole quite a torrid time against some of the lower rated players. So she's wriggled out and got some victories, but her play has been quite up and down this tournament. She like me actually has also not played so much chess for a number of years. She's kind of returning to the game after a number of years where she played almost no competitive chess at all. So she's very sharp. She's a very aggressive player, but also, a little bit rusty.
She's a similar year as you, is she?
She's exactly the same age as me, yeah. In fact, we've spent most of the tournament kind of reminiscing about various competitions we played in 25 years ago. So
very nice.
Yeah. And she's played for the Polish team in many, many Olympiads and European team championships in a very successful medal-winning Polish team.
Yeah, Yeah. So she's sort of very experienced in this sort of situation. She'll. But I actually wonder, because I don't know about you, but whether if she hasn't played for a little while, she'll actually be the more nervous of the two of them, getting into a final round.
I'm not sure she will be nervous. I think she will be a bit disappointed probably with the way that this opening has turned out for her, sort of thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I've completely misevaluated the position, which is possible. I'm kind of talking here as though black is better and doing fine, which is sort of what my gut instinct says. But I'm not tremendously experienced with either side of this structure. So, but I don't know. And also just the times on the clock suggest to me that, this is not what Joanna wanted from the opening. She's down to 37 minutes after just 18 moves. So I think she's going to kind of try and have a bit of a hack and maybe hope that Lan gets a bit nervous, or if you put somebody under pressure, then that sometimes they might make a mistake if they have to choose a defense. But I think I'm not sure what's gone wrong for her in the opening here. I don't know enough about the theory of this line, but my hunch is that black can be very happy with the way this game has gone so far. I mean, I think that Lan would be delighted if she won, and I think she would feel that a draw was also a very good result here. Essentially what she wants to avoid doing is losing.
Okay, she's played a move now, actually, which is, funnily enough, Queen C6.
Okay, so the rook, because the rook has not yet arrived on the C file, then she can do that. And this is quite interesting compared to with what we were looking at a few minutes ago, because now if white plays rook to the C file, I was thinking of the E rook. You see, now that white has spent the tempo with H4, then that actually gives black time to play, for example, rook on A to B8.
Okay.
And now if white plays knight D4...
I see what you're going. If knight D4, we've got a B8 square to drop.
Or even the B7 square, Natasha, because now black has sufficient control of the B file that she can't even play rook to B1 in this position. She'll end up losing two rooks for the queen. So, she can't have everything. She can't have the H4 advance and also have time to do that.
Yeah, this is very different though, isn't it now?
Yeah, because now white has now white's knight is attacked, and if she changes bishops on D5, black will recapture with the queen, of course, to preserve her hold on F5. And again, it's another pair of pieces that have been swapped off, and white's pawns are at least as vulnerable as black's in this position.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, maybe she can go knight B3. No, I'm not really believing it. I'm not really believing this. This is not what white wants at all.
Yeah.
Because her bishop on F4 is not a great piece, other than defensively, but it can't really leave the F4 square without abandoning that E5 pawn to its fate. So no.
I guess you don't play knight D4 unless it's actually working.
Of course she won't play knight D4. I mean, the one exchange that black doesn't want to make is to just give up that bishop on D5 for the knight on F3 and let white's bishop take over the diagonals. So
I'm still looking at this, from a few moves, like Lan Yao's decision from a few moves ago about the taking back with the knight of the pawn. And I'm still looking at but I could be quite wrong, but I'm still looking at the pawn on C5 and thinking I'd have preferred it on B4.
Yeah. But I mean, this is very acceptable for black, this position.
Yeah. I suppose she's got control of this long diagonal. She's got a
That's right. I mean, the only way that white can challenge it, can do anything about that is by moving the knight to, for example, E1. Well, there isn't really any for example about it. It's E1 or nothing. And then I think black will happily exchange another pair of minor pieces. Now that knight is returning into the game via e3, but again, I can't see any, white's pawns are at least as weak as black's here, and black's rooks are at least as active. So
yeah.
So earlier we were suggesting h6 for black, but really there's no need to do that. White is too far off doing anything on the king side for now. So.
Oh, okay. So we can just leave white to it.
Well, certainly for the moment. I mean, and to be honest, with that knight rooted, with so many pieces changed off, and that knight rooted that way, then even if that pawn gets all the way to h6, I think black will just go g6 and say, "Come on, what you doing now?" White doesn't have enough firepower over there to. White needs a couple of knights, really, one on e4 and one on g4, for that to actually be worrying for black, I think. Meanwhile, she's just going to get on, as one of our viewers in the chat says, with getting her rooks into the center on the D file and on the B file. And there are a whole number of weak squares that she can look to take over there. The D4 square, the B4 square, there's the D5 outpost. And when the time is right, I think without any hurry, because she doesn't want to leave her c5 pawn weak, but when the time is right, she can think about transferring her knight round via b6.
Yeah. So it's looking pretty certainly fine and pretty good for black at the moment.
I think so, and I think the amount of time that Joanna is spending on the clock is kind of a reflection of that. Really, I imagine she's really not quite desperately, but she's really trying to wonder how she can get some activity going in the position, and probably also just a horrible sense that she's just been outplayed here a bit, and that can be as important as what the kind of objective evaluation is. This feeling that things are just
this uneasy feeling, right?
Yeah. So actually, I was trying to explain this to Joanna the other day about this is why I love watching tennis. So, are you a tennis fan, Natasha?
I do quite like watching tennis. Yes.
Yeah, I was actually staying in Wimbledon the night before last. And of course, the Wimbledon Championships are about to stay there. I actually passed a famous tennis player on the street the other day, and all the top players are getting out there for the practice courts. Anyway, I love watching tennis, and I think one of the reasons I love watching tennis so much is because basically the dynamics are exactly like chess. If you watch a great match between, say, well, I'm thinking, for example, of the Federer-Nadal final of 2008, but there are dozens of great tennis matches. And it has exactly the same dynamics as chess. You have one player who takes the initiative, rolls into a lead, and then somehow, they just start misfiring, and you see that level dropping. And if you listen to tennis commentators, they say, they pick up on this. And then, you can't quite tell what's gone wrong, but then the tide kind of turns against one player, and it's exactly, I'm sure in your own game, in your own chess games,
and you could be so far ahead, you're winning, but you just can't do anything.
Well, even though you're not winning, but you're comfortably better, but somehow you can't find a way to maintain the initiative, and then your position just drifts a little bit. It drifts a little bit, and then somehow, again, without really even making any more clear mistakes, then somehow the opponent's better, and it's about that sort of shift in momentum too. And I think we especially feel it when we're white, and if you have this same sort of style that Joanna Worochowska does of being an attacking player, you play these openings where really you need to take the initiative and attack, and if you don't get that going, then it kind of starts to turn against you, and then you can become slightly desperate.
Well, she's played h5.
She's playing h5. Okay, so I think that is what I was expecting. I mean, she doesn't want to change those light square bishops off before she has to.
Yeah, and I guess Lan Yao is deciding whether to just ignore it and just allow h6.
Yeah. I mean, white may at some point now also play, for example, she might play king to h2 at some point, possibly even to the idea of getting a, if black plays h6, maybe she'll play king to h2 and put her rook on g1 to support a g4, g5 advance, just something to make Lan Yao worry a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I had this actually yesterday in my game against Ketty. I played quite ineptly in the opening, and I was I was very tired, and I was just worse, actually, to the point I almost just blundered a pawn on about move 10 as white. And I was really kind of kicking myself, going, I've played this opening so feebly as white, and I kind of, this is not the way to play chess. But then the game kind of took a bit of a turn, and I got actually quite a significant initiative going, and set Ketty some significant problems. And I probably should have won the game. And I imagine that Joanna now is trying to do the same sort of thing. She needs to give Lan Yao something to think about here.
Yeah. Now, we talked about in a different position. We talked about black, we talked about h6, but we also talked about f6, and if white taking back with the rook. Would black do that kind of thing in this position?
I would be a little surprised, to be honest, because then it gives white, and at the moment black doesn't have any significant targets on the king's side, and it's quite hard for white to create some. Partly because she's tied up with this pin down the long diagonal. Usually white's ways of creating some kingside initiative on this position are to get that knight out of the way and get the queen into g4. But she can't do that in this position because her knight is essentially pinned to, at the very least, an exchange of bishops on g2.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel that, f6, is just going to give white an additional target,
right?
On the
E4,
and give her an e5 square, create some tactical tricks, perhaps of knight to e5. So I'm not seeing any reason why she needs to. That's the sort of move you play when you need to do it, in order to defend.
Yeah. Okay. Now, should we pop in on the other games quickly?
Yeah, let's see what's going on elsewhere.
Yes. Okay. So we've got two other games going. I was thinking, should we start with Ketty?
Yeah. So these are quite different. I mean, just I haven't seen the games beyond the first few moves, but in terms of the dynamics of the tournament, I think these are both quite different. So Teja Vidic, the player from Slovenia, has had a really bad tournament, unfortunately. She's not from sort of consistently bad play, but just had one of those dreadful tournaments where you have opportunities and don't take them. And actually, if we have time, it would be nice to look at this terrific opportunity she missed against Joanna Dvorakovska the other day. But anyway, she's unfortunately only on half a point out of 8, which of course is incredibly demoralising. And she's now black against one.
Did she get her draw yesterday?
Sorry?
Did she get her draw?
She did get her draw yesterday. So yeah,
yesterday I was telling people I've played in I've twice had a 9-round tournament where I got 0 out of the first 7, then a draw in round 8, and then a 0 in the last round. So she might be just doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course,
when I was little, and yeah.
I mean, this was always going to be a tough tournament for her, but it's incredibly demoralising, and it doesn't reflect, it doesn't reflect her overall level of play. Okay. Ketty has had, I would say, a disappointing tournament for her, and I think she will be very much now looking, she's white against a player she outrates and a player who's also clearly badly off form, and she will be very much looking to sort of make up the deficit as best she can here, and put this one away as white.
Yeah, and it's pretty tough if you're on half out of 8 to come up against a grandmaster, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, then to have black against, and Ketty is a very dynamic attacking player. She's not going to give her any let up in the last round at all. Yeah, I noticed the other day when I was preparing for Taya that she plays this opening sometimes as black. I don't actually know what the variation's called. But like all sorts of weird and wonderful systems, it actually seems surprisingly playable. I think Nakamura has played this a few times as black, certainly in Blitz games.
Okay. Oh, this is, and you play 97 as well. I think I've played this stuff, but via a transposition. Yeah. Takes. Okay, isn't it?
Okay, so yeah, it's some sort of Lopez where black concedes the center early, and then is going to generate some play with c5. I don't know. I can't remember. I did look up some of the theory the other day, but I'm not on top of it.
Takes.
Yeah, I think I saw it after this point and was already a little bit worried about. I mean, I really just glanced at it, so I was already a little bit concerned about Taya's position, though possibly without any justification. I mean, is White going to go knight to d5, for example? Is White threatening knight to d5 already?
Yeah, I mean, this pin sort of looks a bit alarming, doesn't it? Knight d5.
Okay, so she's gone knight to d5, yeah. So White is trying to, I guess, establish, if she can get enough control, a knight on c6.
Yeah, and so, yeah, black took.
And it's very hard for black to, break the pin with g5, because that will, after the bishop retreats, that's going to open her up along the long diagonal. That queen will come to d3, and she's going to be in presumably a lot of trouble leading down to the h7 square. I'm guessing. Okay, so queen d7, that makes, yeah.
It's just getting out of that pin, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, black has some pressure down the a1 h8 diagonal. It's not super easy for White to Can White move that knight? No, it's not super easy. And so the position it's quite dynamic. Obviously White has the bishop pair. Okay, let's see where we're at now.
Yeah, b4. So she comes in to knight c4.
Okay, so now White's given up the bishop pair, right, in order to establish that knight on c6. So what's going on here? Is this we're almost at the position? Okay.
This is live now. Yeah.
This is now live. Okay, so she's gone back to b6 to cover the c8 rook, because any other square than the knight e7 check tactic, would have picked it up. So, for example, knight e5 in the last position was a blunder, although it's a more active square, because knight to e7 check will pick up an exchange, the win of an exchange.
Sure.
Okay, so what have we got going on here? So, okay, White has now secured that c6 square with her knight, and that d pawn is very securely supported by the b3 bishop. So the question really is whether black can just play around that knight, and actually it turns out to be a bit irrelevant. I mean, for example, if black can follow up by getting her rook to the maybe off the c file where it's a little bit vulnerable,
rook e8 or something. Yeah.
Put it on the e file instead, and then the problem she still has to solve, though, is getting that knight on b6 into the game and onto a better square, because it's not great on b6.
That's
and
true.
Yeah, though it's also quite hard for White to hit that knight. If she could hit it on the long diagonal with a move like queen e3, but the rook's coming to the e8 line quite quickly, and although that bishop on b3 is doing a good job of supporting the d5 pawn, and that's all very secure, then it's not doing a whole lot else. So and black and the bishops are of opposite colors here.
Yeah, and black's bishop looks pretty nice, doesn't it? That one on G7.
Yeah, though it's a little bit, I mean, it's doing a nice defensive job on the king side. I don't think black is in danger on the king side any longer, if indeed she ever was. I mean, it's not really... Okay, so... Okay, A4. So that makes a lot of sense. White needs to try and create some weaknesses somewhere on the queen side.
Yeah.
And that this actually is quite funny, because this is almost exactly... I actually got the advantage against Ketty in a very similar way yesterday by levering her structure on the king side, on the queen side open. So she's now... I'm absolutely not going to say she's now learnt from me, because Ketty's far too smart. She needs to learn this.
You reminded her
from me. But yeah, it's as chess players, we vaguely amused to see these kind of moments. So what's black going to do now? The problem is if she just leaves that there. So white is threatening A5 when black's knight is in mega big trouble. And she's threatening A5, and there are also ideas of A takes B5, and just queen to, say, D3, and black cannot defend that that pawn. Is that already?
Yeah, actually, now that moves in there, that looks really strong for white, doesn't it?
Yeah. So actually, I think, because normally in the Lopez, I mean, this is a kind of, well, it is a Lopez, but normally in this kind of queenside structure on the Lopez, then black kind of wants to hold on to that B5 strong point. I don't think she can do this here. I think instead she because she can't let that knight on B6 be chased at the moment. Her position is too loose tactically to do this. And you see what I mean, actually, that bishop on G7 looks pretty. And it's great on the king side, but actually there's nothing going on the king side, and it's not much for it to, target on the queen side either. So I'm wondering here. I'm thinking black has to capture off that A4 pawn. Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, definitely like that. Bishop takes. And now she can't take that again, because knight to E7 check is going to win an exchange, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Good thinking. So, okay. Oh, dear.
Hang on a minute, Natasha. Am I right about that? Knight takes A4, knight takes A4, knight E7 check. Okay. Takes. I'm not sure this is correct, actually, because queen takes E7 check. I think this is a mistake by white. Queen takes E7. Okay, rook takes rook check.
Yeah.
King H7. And now queen takes A4.
Oh, the bishop suddenly becomes useful.
No, this is a disaster. Queen E1 check, followed by queen E1 check, followed by bishop to E5 check.
Yes, counter-attack with that bishop. Good grief. You're absolutely right.
No, and that is that's not what white wants at all. So after knight takes E4, she should avoid trying to cash in on the exchange, taking the exchange straight away, and she should just take back with the queen immediately. Okay.
Yep. So queen takes.
And now you see white is hitting the pawn on A6, and that is actually very difficult for black to defend. So we're now threatening the knight E7 check tactic, because we have an extra tempo. We've already taken the knight, and I don't see a way for black to defend that pawn on A6. For example, rook to A8 and then just B5.
Ooh.
I mean, that must be...
That's horrible.
Well, is it horrible? I mean, unless she can just go queen to B7 here.
Queen B7.
Now we've got that rook out the way.
Right. So, if white takes, we just have rook takes. That's
because the king can tuck itself, so long as we don't lose any other pieces in the interim. The king can tuck itself away. Well, or can it? Can it tuck itself away on H7? I was just thinking pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, knight e7 check. You see, if rook takes knight e7 check, and then if we play king to h7,
queen
can
e8.
white go queen e8? Does that cause a problem, or does that cause a problem? You see, we're threatening queen to g8, checkmate, and we're threatening queen takes f7, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
That looks
not
good.
so clever.
That looks good.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe, but hang on a minute, hang on. How's about if we take back on a6 with the queen instead?
We're here, so if we go queen takes.
If we go queen takes, yeah.
Yes.
Because
then,
now the rook is still covering.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
All right. So knight e7 and then queen
and
f4
then queen...
forking. Oh no, queen f4.
It doesn't fork anything because we have d6 protected in that. Maybe queen f.
But oh gosh, there's still this bishop's going to come into it. I was looking at rook c6 is coming in. I'm going to put it on the board. Knight here, king here. But queen f4 is going to be a bad idea, I think, because oh well, wait, no, okay, so we've got this is attacking.
That's attacked, yeah. I think we better defend it with our rook, don't you?
Rook f8.
Yeah,
let's do that. And
I don't really want to make a loosening move like f5. So
okay, so what if I do go then?
Now I will go check on the a1.
Right, and I might have to just come back. But that's not so exciting because you can just go back.
Well, I could go back, or I could even play, say, queen to e5. I would probably play queen to e5 in that position.
You do that. Yes.
I don't know if white has... That's not the way to... I mean, does white still have an advantage? I'm not convinced. I mean...
Yeah.
It's not the way to go about winning the position as white, so...
What I can tell you is we've got some more moves.
Okay, let's see, because, yeah.
Takes and bishop takes.
Okay, so what my first thought in this position was let's leave the knight there and go, say, queen to b7. We need to hold on to that b6 knight because it's holding our position together at the moment.
Well, Black's done it slightly different. Black's played actually king h7.
Okay, so sidestepping those check tactics another way. Okay, is that quite clever?
Looks clever to me, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think, there's a lot, it's kind of ingrained in us in some ways that, if you can take off a bishop for a knight in an open position, then you do so. But I'm not sure Black does want to do that here because white has to work a little bit hard to actually get that bishop doing anything. And meanwhile, that knight on b6 is giving us some useful counterplay against the d5 pawn, maybe with moves like queen to f5 coming in. So and of course it also brings white's queen out onto a square where it's immediately hitting the a6 pawn. So it makes a lot of sense for Black to hold off that. Okay, how is this the current position?
This is the current position.
Okay,
yes.
And it's quite interesting. I mean, I noticed that Ketty is more than half an hour behind on the clock here. So they've played a fair number of moves, but she's down to just 19 minutes. And that indicates to me she doesn't think she's not finding this super straightforward. She's not in kind of cruise control mode here because I think if she was cruising here, she would be playing more quickly.
I think she's trying to make something of it, but maybe
she's created some problems. And I mean that's exactly, and I mean Taya must be nervous because she's made a number of unfortunately tactical errors in not dissimilar positions in this tournament. I mean, against me, unfortunately, she just hung a piece on move 12 as Black. And if you have one or two errors like that, then it really dents your confidence and you start getting very, very scared about your ability to play chess or calculate anything. And so these kind of tactical threats like knight e7 check, I think will worry her, for that reason as much as for the actual position on the board. Just, when you've shown yourself to be a bit, not at your best tactically during a tournament, then you're very, very worried about kind of will the same repeat itself. But she's got a lot of time on the clock still. So, I mean, I can't have been in there to see her body language, but maybe she's maybe she's actually reasonably.
Yeah, well, that might be why she wants to get that king out of the
but
way.
that's
Just
cut out. I'd originally thought of queen b7 to kind of hold the a pawn as well, but maybe it's actually more flexible to just leave the queen, because of course now white's knight is actually it's actually pinned to that bishop on a4. So So it's a great night, but there is always this question of that a lot of pieces have been exchanged already, and if black can succeed in just playing around that outpost, then it may not prove to be so significant. I mean, black has a couple of weak pawns or pawns that could be targeted on d6 and a6, but equally she has her own pawns to defend on. Okay, so what's this? Bishop to c2.
Bishop c2 by Ketty, lining up maybe on. Well, she's probably lost confidence in her.
I think this move is partly about prevent. I think part of that is she wants to prevent queen to f5 hitting her d pawn.
Aha. Yes, mind you couldn't play it because of knight.
Because the rook would have. Yeah, you could, because the rook would take the rook.
You just take on c1.
Yeah, so knight e7. The knight e7 thought was not dangerous because of the capture on c1. Because that was actually the square that queen was looking at. And we can just point out here that superficially, then black has a tactic: knight takes d5, queen takes d5, something takes c6. But this would be a blunder for black. That's the even worse way of doing it, because a bishop takes g6 check. Okay, so the knight is defended indirectly. Okay, and white will win an exchange and go on to win that game.
For example, yes. Very good.
Okay, one of our commentators says, "Got to keep the bishop." I'm not clear which bishop. I presume that's referring to the white bishop. I don't actually think it is a question of. I think actually white would have been very happy had black captured the bishop. I think it's a question of she's trying to prevent Taya's counterplay by stopping the queen coming out to f5. And she's probably also, lining up. She's at least making Taya think about the possibility of h4. In fact, that's probably her idea, is to play.
Yeah. h4 and h5, right?
H4, and you note that black can't play h5 herself because the g pawn is pinned, and queen takes h5 check. Would win the pawn. And again, that's a very good kind of practical decision. Put the pressure back on your opponent, make them worry. How are they going to deal with that threat? She's now got to think, was h7 the right square for her king after all? And just worry about this idea of h4 to h5, opening up that diagonal. Even if the king steps back to say h8, then that is still going to be a great idea. Positionally. Or, it might tempt black into playing a move like f5 to try and close that down. But, then that creates some further weaknesses. It creates some weaknesses on the e6 square, and it means if that diagonal, that b1 to h7 diagonal does fall apart, then she's going to be even worse off. She's really going to regret that if it goes wrong. So, yeah. And I know that black she also can't play knight to c4 here. So black, she might would really like to kind of try and reroute her knight back to the e5 square, offering to change off those knights. But again, knight to c4 will just lose a pawn to bishop takes g6 check, and then white will certainly be in cruise control mode. So, And again, you see that bishop on g7. It doesn't, it's a nice piece, but it's not targeting anything.
Yeah. So I quite like this, just rerouting everything to the E file, maybe.
Yeah, the problem is that she can really only, she's struggling to find a good square of her queen in this position. And there's also this very immediate threat of h4 to h5.
Yeah.
It's funny, in some ways you feel black ought not to be so much worse, but maybe she is.
Yeah, the knight on...
It's not happy.
g6, yeah.
It's not happy.
All right, let's head back to the board one, just see what's happened.
Let's check in there.
Right, now where did we get to before? Let's see.
Okay, so some things are clarified with the rooks at least. So h5.
Yeah, and Lanyao we were talking about rook ab8 and she did play it.
Okay.
Okay, and then rook ec1. Lining up on that c file, and then Lanyao came in with rook b4.
Okay, so that cuts out any tactical tricks with knight d4 altogether.
Oh yes, because rook can now just take. Yeah. Rook c2.
That also, of course, prepares to double rooks, which she's now done.
Yes, so we've got black doubling up on the b file and white doubling up on the c file.
So white's a2 pawn is reasonably secure for the time being, at least, because she has that doubly defended. And, those rooks are some way from actually hitting the c5 pawn, which is pretty secure at the moment. But at least they're kind of, they're looking in the right direction. They tie down black's pieces a little bit. Yeah,
and so Lanyao's put these rooks on here. We were talking about whether white was going to try and do something on the king side, because this h pawn's up to h5, and we thought.
Yeah, I think she has to be a little bit careful before playing h6, because there's a risk that just becomes an additional weakness that I'm sure black will respond with g6, and then there's a risk whether that just becomes yet another weakness she has to defend. So I think she'll probably hold off from that. I mean, I wonder if she might play moves like bishop to e3 just to tie down. Bishop to e3, brings, well, it doesn't immediately bring into play the knight d4 option, but just keeps an eye on that c5 pawn, ties down Lan's bishop and knight.
Yeah.
And I would expect her to go king to h2 at some point, just to get that king off the back rank. It gives her a few more options to defend her bishop, perhaps by dropping it back to h1 or by putting a rook on the g file. I mean, none of these things look very scary, but just to try and give her a few more options to improve her flexibility to move that knight should she wish to do so. Okay.
What happened there? Rook b1.
Rook b1. Okay, so black's going to try and exchange some rooks, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think black's rooks are actually at least as good as white's, but I think, in general, this is going to do her position no harm.
Yeah, because you're still going to be looking at that a pawn at the end, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, black can also look to advance her own a pawn. If black can, for example, get her own a pawn down to a3 in the furthest instance, then that means that if that introduces some ideas of putting a major piece on b2 at some point and really tightening the screws on white's a pawn. So I'm sure, and really white is going to find it very hard to stop the advance of that a pawn. I think black has good control over the queen side. But I noticed that the clock times are much more even now than they were a little while ago. So Lan has obviously had a big think about one of these moves, because when we last looked, then Joanna was about 20 minutes behind on the clock, and now there's only 3 or 4 minutes in it.
True.
But I don't think that's really reflective of anything significant having changed in the position.
Yeah, she's just working.
I mean, they may have seen, we've been looking reasonably superficially. So I mean, they may have been looking at some things quite deeply that we haven't been analysing. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to guess she's going to leave her rook on c2. She can't stop an exchange of rooks, so maybe she's going to exchange on b1 and then put her king on h2.
Yeah, so rook takes, and king out the way there.
Yeah.
This sort of looks quite even to me.
Yeah, it probably is quite even. I think on the whole, I would rather be black, but
yeah. So maybe it's now's the time to get her a pawn going. So a5.
Yeah, I mean, she can still think about whether she wants to go h6 at some point, really, which also cuts out any sort of potential back rank options.
What about knight d4 now comes back into?
Yeah, that also comes. I mean, I just noticed, she has to be a little bit careful about checkmating ideas on h1, not immediately, but I noticed that after, for example, bishop takes g2, which doesn't work incidentally, but bishop takes g2, knight takes queen on c6.
Yeah.
Bishop takes, oh no, not rook h1 check, because bishop takes that. And I mean, actually, this is nothing for black. This is not good enough, because white can go f3 here to to close down that diagonal. But you just have to be a little bit aware that there are these ideas in the position, even if this one is some way off working.
Yes. Okay, we do have another move.
Okay.
Which is knight d4. Yes.
Okay. So so something's
without the rook exchange first.
Without the rook exchange. Okay. Well, obviously now she's not going to get mated on h1. So where is that? So she's taken the rook on c1. Is that a move? She's taken on c1 check. Yep. Okay.
And so presumably white will recapture.
I'm guessing she'll. Yeah. I guess with the rook, though, not certainly. I mean,
could be with the bishop.
Is there an argument for taking with the bishop and possibly? Yeah, it's quite difficult tactically to reroute it to a3, because of course she's got all her pieces hanging at the moment, and there's a risk that not now, but after the queen moves, that there's a risk that something will land on b1, the rook or the queen pinning that bishop. So, yeah, I'd be a bit surprised.
Yeah.
And now the queen will drop back to somewhere on the light squared diagonal, certainly.
All right.
Because as we said earlier, we can't afford for white to change those bishops and get knight to f5, and that would suddenly make some sense of white's position.
Yeah.
Okay, and now does white have any way to avoid an exchange of pieces? See, I'm not really sure what white is doing here, because her bishop is attacked, her knight is attacked.
You could drop the knight back again.
We could drop the knight back, but then why did we bother going knight?
We do it. Yeah.
Black's queen is not significantly worse on the b7 on the a8 square compared to the time she's lost that white has lost with that little maneuver. I don't think.
Yeah, so then you pretty much have to take if you're not doing that.
Yeah, but then where then her knight is hanging. The black is very happy then, because the white knight is loose, the e5 pawn is under attack, so that really seems to force knight back to f3. But I would have thought black would be quite happy with that exchange of pieces.
I think so too.
I mean, that queen is just beautiful on d5. You know, it's right in the center. Black's rook is good on the b file.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at rook takes, which and then again, I guess the queen is going to drop. I guess the queen is going to go to b7. Yeah, okay. I mean, now it can go more plausibly to b7, because we can, after bishop takes c1, queen b7, we have the option of rook to b2, but we can't put the rook on the b7 on the b file here. So we might as well, therefore, you know, put the queen on the more active square b7. Okay, so now at least she does have her e5 pawn covered better. So I mean, that would give her the option, for example, of exchanging bishops and going knight to b3 in this position. So trying to close down some of black's activity on the b file, keeping an eye on that c5 pawn. It also prevents black playing a5 for now. And we have some ideas ourselves of maybe knight a5 to c4.
Yeah. Okay, we do have some. So rook c1
let's
and
see.
queen b7.
Okay, right. So what's she going to do? So again, she's got 2 pieces under threat. So she can hold on to both of those. She can keep them on the board by playing knight to f3. But I really don't like that for white. I mean, won't black just play something like queen to b2 here? Yeah? Black.
Swapping off.
Well, I guess white will play rook c2. She's really got to, because otherwise the...
Now, Harriet, I can hear you only some of the time at the moment.
Oh dear. I don't think anything's changed.
That's fine. That's good like that. Okay, good. Okay, fine. So, but this looks good for black.
That looks like things are going in the right direction for black. I noticed that now Joanna is back. She's falling behind on time.
Yeah. Oh, and they have played bishop takes actually and queen takes.
Okay, yeah. I thought this must be her idea, because this is, and then I imagined transfer her knight to b3.
Yeah. So knight b3. There we go.
So although white's d pawn is weak here, then actually the knight, it's a little bit tricky for black to attack it, because the knight is just getting in the way on the d file slightly.
Yeah. It's been there kind of for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not doing a bad job there. It's far from being a bad piece, and black has more than one way to approach. You know, this is not a one-trick position. Black can do other things beyond just targeting the d3 pawn.
Yeah.
It's quite hard for white to attack that c5 pawn again, because, you know, she can't really put her bishop on e3 and leave that e5 pawn hanging. So,
yeah. I mean, could white, in theory, go round and block it with knight c? So like knight a5 first, and then knight c4.
I think this is very much on the cards as an idea, or possibly also actually getting the queen to the c4 square.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So she has played now knight b3.
Yeah. A book that made a big impression on me once. I used to be when I was a junior, I was very reluctant, like a lot of juniors are, to exchange queens in almost any position, just because, I wanted to win every game by checkmating the king. And this seemed kind of, counterproductive to doing this. And then I read a book that made quite an impression on me. I think it was an Edmar Mednis book, and it was called something like From the Opening into the End Game. And it basically discussed, in what positions should you exchange queens, and in particular, it discussed situations in which the queens get exchanged at a very early stage of the game. And one of them, which I think is a very important lesson, is if the enemy queen is much more active than yours, then it makes a lot of sense to exchange it. And you can't play every position. Not every position is about going for a checkmating attack. And I think and this is quite a good example. Players who play the white side of the King's Indian attack like to hope they'll be going for a checkmating attack, but you have to recognize when the dynamics of a position evolve differently. And I think it's fairly clear here that now too many pieces have been exchanged. And the pieces that white has left are, on the whole, they're parked over on the queen side. So white, it would be completely inappropriate for white to kind of pursue the idea of a checkmating attack in this position. It's just not going to happen. Black's king is more than adequately defended. So white has to change strategy. And actually, if we could relocate our queen in one fell swoop to c4. Then I would quite like to do that, because Black's queen is kind of hogging the board, really, hogging the light squares on d5, and if we could counteract it with some similar activity from our queen and change them off, then that would be a good idea strategically. But when you start to understand things like this in chess and become less dogmatic, I will not exchange queens because I want to checkmate my opponent in every position, then you become a much stronger player. When you realize that you need to play the position and not play consistently to some single style that you have in mind, then that's one of the times when you make a real leap forward in your understanding of chess.
But it'll take her a couple of moves then to get this queen.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? If she, okay, it's not even white's move now, but even if she could play queen to c2 in this position, you know what? Black would probably just play queen to f3. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. When that h5 pawn is starting to look a bit feeble. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then white would have to defend it probably with, h6 would be technically possible, but probably with queen to d1. But that's a much less satisfactory square for white to exchange the queens on, leaving her with a passive rook on d1. So
you could do it like with rook c4. Do it the other way round.
We could do it with rook to c4 and then perhaps queen to e4. Of course, if we put our rook on c4, there's a considerable risk Black will just hit that with knight to d5. Knight to b6, and then the knight has gained some time to head towards the d5 square, which is one of its preferred destinations anyway. So, yeah. So what's white going to do here? Maybe she's going to go. Okay, maybe her idea, if she has an idea, or is she's going to go king to h2 and then g4. Just see what happens with that g pawn. I know. I said it's not about checkmating the king in this position, and I don't think it really is, but. I don't
might as well try it. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that would harm white's position that much strategically. So, yeah. And just, make Black make some decisions. Is she going to play h6 or is she not?
Yeah, because actually Black needs to decide even here. She's gone rook to
d8. Okay. Well, so that makes... Okay, so she wants to move the knight out of the way.
Yeah, and get
but
the
before she does that, she's going to line up her rook with the d pawn so that the knight move comes with gain of tempo on the d3 pawn. It's still not clear it will actually she will really be threatening to take it, even if black could have an extra move knight to b6 in right now, because even if she could play knight b6 and queen takes d3, white could change queens and then take the pawn on c5. So
yeah,
and that's that's even allowing black 2 free moves in this position. So yeah, the back rank is a little bit uncomfortable for black, because at some point, if these pawns on d3 and c5 do get exchanged, and there's a number of ways that might happen, then she's got to watch out for her back rank. So then she is going to have to make a decision. She's not going to solve the back rank problem by playing g6, because white can control that g7 square in a number of ways. So h6 is the move you want to play to solve the back rank problem. But then that gives white a few options for at least generating some play. What's white going to go here? Maybe she'll go queen to e3. Maybe.
Right. Let's have a look at that one.
Just, tying black's knight down a little bit. Because now if she goes knight b6, then that pawn disappears immediately. Yeah.
Yes.
And
so if h6.
And if h6, well, white is not going to sacrifice that bishop there, because she doesn't have the attacking force to do that. But, could she even go, no, I don't think could go d4 here to try and exchange. She could consider going d4.
d4. What about c4?
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, no, I'd forgot my queen was no longer on e2. Yeah, I wanted to play that move. No, forget that. Bad plan. Okay. Or she could go, now if she goes knight to a5, then the problem is she removes the pressure. No, she can't go knight a5. a2 is hanging, and she's taken away too much pressure on the c5 pawn. Yeah, it's quite tricky. In some ways, white would like to play rook to c4, but then knight to b6 comes with tempo.
All right.
But at the moment,
king h2.
King h2. Yeah. Is that a move, or is that?
No. We're just. Yeah, the position on the board is just after rook d8.
Okay, so she's having a big think about what to do. Yeah.
Right. Now, do say, Harriet, I don't know how long you're intending to stream this afternoon, but do say when you need to stop, obviously.
I'm happy to go on. It might be nice to have a 10-minute break to go and grab a drink and take a bathroom break. So shall we do that now?
Let's do that now. Because
before it gets really the moves start coming really thick and fast. And I'm aware there's still one game we haven't even looked at all.
We'll do that as well.
On that as well before either of these other games get super critical. Okay,
so I'm going to stop the stream. Thanks everyone for watching so far, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
Okay, see you soon.
Thank you for watching.